welcome to our next video about developing a web blog application using Angular 7, ASP.NET Core, and MongoDB. Before we start, I want to mention something I think it's very important, and that is the reason why I'm doing all these live streams instead of uploading a pre-recorded and edited video to YouTube is that I want the viewers to capture the thought process of an engineer who has been doing this for the last 12 years in the field actively. So I think it's more important than just learning the programming that I'm teaching here. So because if you have that thought process that a lot of people, especially experts, have developed over the years, you can learn pretty much any programming language. It is not a big deal, to be honest. Of course, what's big deal is to learn the frameworks and learn the idiomatic way to develop applications in that particular language. But the language itself, the syntax and all that stuff is pretty easy. So anyways, let's continue from where we left off in our first video, which was part 1. And in our first video, we basically created some solution file and some projects using .NET Core CLI. If you remember, like the commands that we used, they were .NET new, and to add a new solution file as well as a new Angular ASP.NET project. And also we used .NET SLN command to edit the solution file to be able to basically add the project file to our solution file so that we can have a container for all the projects we're going to have. And we also incorporated Swagger by using this library over here, Swashbuckle. And it is a third-party library that makes the Swagger integration in ASP.NET a lot easier than what you would do if you use the Swagger itself. And we also follow some of the steps here in the instructions, and you'll see that we added this. Of course, we had to have the Swashbuckle ASP.NET Core NuGet packages. We also added this add Swagger gen, which basically generates your Swagger. And for the Swagger to capture the API endpoints, what they recommend is to use the attribute routing instead of the traditional routing in the middleware in the startup file. So we're going to be using attribute routings more than actually pretty much just attribute routings. And also we said in our middleware, which is an in configure method in the startup file, we said I want to use Swagger, and this way I basically registered the Swagger how can I say, like Swagger step in the HTTP request pipeline and response pipeline, which is what we call middleware in ASP.NET Core. Of course, if you just use this method over here, you will get a JSON format back, or JSON file, or JSON response back. But if you want to see some interactive UI, to be able to like see all the methods in a more like graceful way, and if you want to see if you want to interact with the endpoints, you can also use this method over here, which says use Swagger UI, which I'm going to show you the difference between those two methods in Writer. So let's go back to our Writer IDE, and let's actually remove this quickly. Actually, let's make it commented out. So I'm just going to comment, and let's actually run this. Of course, we gotta stop this first, and then run this. And I'm going to go back to our IDE, and then here. So actually, let's remove this. By the way, if you hear a baby sound in the background, it's my 9-month-old daughter So I apologize for that, but I cannot stop her to scream and yell and stuff like that. She's enjoying her time. All right, so I'm gonna refresh this page. Of course, let me actually do this again. Swagger. Wait. I'm gonna look at something real quick. Again, I mean, these are not pre-recorded videos, so you will see me like forgetting things, missing things, and this is the human side of these videos. I mean, if you work in a professional environment, this is what's gonna happen to you as well. We're not the hackers that you see on the commercials or in the TV shows and stuff like that. There's not such a person that exists, you know, that does that, you know, very fast and without forgetting anything. There's no like super duper programmer in the world, so we're all the same. We forget things. So let me actually go to backwriter and want to check something in documentation. Okay, so this is what I forget. So I have to say Swagger version 1. So you have to like give the entire URL here instead of just piece of it. So I'm just gonna copy that over here. Now I get the version 1 and Swagger. Wait, what's missing? Let me see. Version 1 blog API, version 1 Swagger. Is that what I copied? I'm missing something. I usually haven't tried this personally. I always use a UI because, I mean, to be honest, to me, this pure JSON didn't really make sense to me. So I always use it with the use Swagger UI. So the reason is because we have this double /. Now it works perfectly. So I mean, you can use this JSON if you need it for some reason, maybe for documentation purposes or whatnot. Or if you need the metadata of the exposed APIs, here you go. You can capture this information. But personally, what I like about Swagger is, at least of this library, is this guy over here. So I really like to have this option enabled. So I'm just gonna uncomment it, and then if you run this again, of course, I mean, you can't just restart button over here. I believe it's a restart. Let me actually look at that. It's a run, but okay, never mind. I think it's a stop and restart. So instead of just saying stop and start, you can just click here and it will automatically stop and start again. Okay, so it is loading my website, and let's go to Swagger again. And here we go. We have the a pretty nice UI that we can pretty much customize a lot of things here. So let me show you something. Normally, my intention is not to show you Swagger and stuff like that. But I think it's really important if you work with Angular and ASP.NET Core, and to learn Swagger will help you a lot. Will help your team a lot, not just you. So I think it's a valuable time, worth the time to spend here a little bit about Swagger. So let me go back. And now, if you go back up here, you see that you can actually, you know, add more information here. So let's add something more. You can add the version and API and all that stuff. You can also add contact information here as well, right? So I personally add contact information if I work in a big team, because I want people to know who developed this and whom to contact, right? I think it's important. So if you do that, like contact and new contact, and you can use the object initializer and say URL and name and stuff. So usually, like, you can give your team name here, but I personally will give my name. So Tariq Gunay, right? And now I can say email. I don't know. Maybe I can just do URL, and then we can add my GitHub account here, which is like github.com. Tariq Gunay. All right, that looks nice. So let me see what else we can add over here. What's going on here? Let me see. I didn't like something that I'm missing. This, good. Oh, it's probably didn't like this. Oops. Maybe like that. Okay, so this is nice. This is fine. Of course, we're missing an extra this and this. Perfect. Let's see what else we have here. We have license and extensions, descriptions, terms of service, and pretty much a lot of things here we can use. But I'm just gonna have just contact and extra information, and that's pretty much enough for me. But as I said before, I mean, if you're working in a multi-team environment, I think it's really good to have all this information on your Swagger API. Also, you can actually disable or enable Swagger based on your environment. For instance, if you are in a development environment, which we check that over here is a development. And if you, in fact, let's dive into this method and see what actually checks to see if it's a development environment or not. So there's this environment development. I think it is a field. Yeah, right. It's a name of development. That's fine. Which is actually I kind of like this really. Like normally you could have used a string representation here, right? Like a string development, but those guys use name of development. The good thing about name of in C# is that when you refactor this development here with, let's say, like you want to rename this symbol, it actually finds all the references of development and renames them automatically. So that doesn't happen if you use magic strings, just strings, what we call the magic strings most of the time for in this particular context. So they used it, so if they end up refactoring its name, they actually, the tool they use will refactor all the references of that symbol, which is really nice. Anyways, so let's go back and see, we have this hosting environment, which is, so you see that this is an extension method. So we're checking the hosting environment, and we are looking at, we're actually, extend this hosting environment interface. So somewhere here, and it's probably is an environment, we have this, let's see, somehow we're setting this, okay, so if you like hover over the environment name, now we have some description over here and says gets or sets the name of the environment. The host automatically sets this property to the value of the ASP.NET Core environment. So this is a environment variable, right? I mean, if you look at your advanced settings and if you look at the path and stuff, we can set the environment there. Variable or environment as specified in any other configuration source. So if you are in a computer that has ASP.NET Core environment variable, that means you are in an environment. I mean, you can't specify what type of environment is that, but you can say development environment and all that stuff. So let's actually go ahead and see the documentation, ASP.NET Core environment, and see what type of options do we have here. So ASP.NET Core reads the environment variable ASP.NET Core environment at app startup and stores the value in iHosting environment name. And you can set ASP.NET environment to any value, but 3 values are supported by the framework. So these are development, staging, and production. So if ASP.NET environment isn't set, it's default to production. So I think these are really valuable information, as it affects your program. It affects, what capabilities you expose in what environment. So I think it's very important to know that you have these options. Cool. So let's go back to Writer, right? And I think we got our answer. So I'm just gonna exit out of that class. So, all right, that's nice. And so we have everything we need at this point. So I'm gonna be explaining the kind of the basic architecture that I want to use for this project. And So I'm gonna switch to Sketchbook, Autodesk Sketchbook. So let me actually clear this out. New. Right. So, I mean, what I like about programming, or what I like about what I do, is that I always follow iterative programming. I don't like consider everything. In fact, I can't consider everything in advance. So what I'm gonna have to do is that as I develop, I learn, I realize new capabilities or new requirements of the product that I'm working on. And also, you know, if you watch me like coding, you'll see that I remove code or I add new code or I refactor and stuff like that. I don't do like everything in advance or anything at the very beginning. I don't do that because I don't actually find that valuable as well. Because, you know, as you work on your project, you know, some of the things that you haven't thought of reveal themselves. And as that, when you figure that out, you know, you just have to, you know, feel comfortable to refactor things, you know, to change things, to delete your code, or start over. So that's the programming. That's my thought process, and I think it's very valuable, and has been valuable to me for the last, I don't know, 10 years, and you know, it helped me to like this field, like this occupation. Otherwise, I will feel like brain tired, exhausted, right? I couldn't go any further because of like you think everything in advance in the beginning that makes you exhausted, and at that point this job you know will something that you probably don't like. So let's draw something. So okay, this is stable. Let's see what color we're using. I want to go with the black color right now. So this is our, of course, I gotta switch to this app right now, Sketchbook. And this is gonna be our client, right? And our front end, let's say, not a client, but front end. Well, client is a okay term here as well. So it's gonna be an Angular stuff, and for this, I'm gonna have components and modules, right? So components. Actually, let's be more specific than that. So I'm not gonna say component, but what type of components we're looking at. So the first thing would probably be app module. It is just a very vague, very overall design. It will change, I'm sure, but right now it is just what I'm thinking, and will give me some roadmap to think about. Okay, so app module will probably have some home module, or actually it has automatically as a bootstrap component, it has app component. And if you don't know what component is, you can think of them as a page, to be honest. And modules is like a namespace that has basically, you know, specifies a boundary for your components, and you can make them private in that component. You can expose them to other components. Also, app module is the boundary for code distribution within your Angular project. So if you want to distribute your components, your directives, and all that stuff, you distribute them through app module. So you import app modules, right, from within another modules, and you tell, I want to use this component, I want to use that directive, and all that stuff. But you have to import modules. You can't import components. And I'm not talking about JavaScript import. I'm talking about Angular import. And there are two different things. I'm going to explain what they are as we come to that point. But right now I'm saying, like, you know, app modules are an important piece of, actually it's one of the building blocks of Angular. So just have to know that. And we're gonna have app component here. An app component is probably gonna be parent component for the rest of the applications. Parent component. And I think I'm gonna be using a home controller, at home component here as well. It is like a dashboard. Well, not dashboard. It is gonna be a home component where you will see, you know, all the kind of a summary of the blog post, a list of the blog posts, right? So this is gonna be like a title here. This is the how I assume the UI will look like, and some summary here of that blog post, right? And then you can click here and it will take you another component where you will see the details of that post. And we will have probably have some date here, you know, some author information as well, and all that stuff. So, and you know, we're gonna have title here, maybe some picture, and you know, and the rest of the post. Of course, we're gonna have some on the homepage. We're gonna probably, I'm not quite sure. I to be honest, I really wanna keep this simple, the UI and everything. So normally, like if I go to blog pages, I see like so many widgets and stuff like that. Like here, there's a calendar, and here there's something else, the tags, and all that stuff. To be honest, I've never used any of those on any blog, web page, website I have visited in my entire life. I've seen them, and I know they're there, but I haven't used any of those, like calendar, and I call them widget, but I don't know, whatever you call them. So I just want to make it very, very simple. And so here in the app home component, which you know shows all those things, and of course this is gonna be a detail or post detail, post maybe entry, I don't know, post detail or details component. So you know these are links and stuff, and okay, that's fine. Let me think. Yeah. So the post details component will make a request, AJAX request, right? So in its ng init function, of course you don't know any of these, but in its ng init function, it will make a HTTP request to the endpoint that I expose here, and we'll get the content of it. So how it's gonna know which content to get? Of course, we will be passing post ID, right? So the post ID is the primary key that helps us to fetch the appropriate content. All right, so next, so we have a home component. Of course, we will have some authentication, right? So authentication. By the way, I've seen so many people that, to be honest, cannot spell this this word, like authentication. And there's so many different pronunciations in the United States. You will see like some say authentication, some say authentication. You know, some people really emphasize this T, and some people pronounce them as D. Some people even don't even pronounce those T's and stuff like that. So after a while, you start to distinguish which accents is which. So anyways, so it's probably gonna be well, just a, I mean, I was thinking to name it as a login component, but I think authentication component is pretty much sufficient as well. All right, so what's gonna happen is that when you, well, I don't know, maybe I can just put a login here somewhere, or I can even make this kind of a private. Yeah, I can even make it private kind of thing. Like you don't see any login here and there, but if you like go to URL and say / and log in, the routing captures that, right? And reroutes you to the authentication component. So I may do that, but I probably will put a login because it's not, I mean, if hackers want to hack this, right? I mean, they don't care about if you have a login button or not. So they will figure out that you have this, and they will figure out by looking at your JavaScript code that you downloaded from and they're gonna figure it out. So I'm not gonna go crazy and kind of hide this login button. And the good thing is that we're going to be using material design. Yeah, this is S. And that is part of Angular. So material.angular.io if you want to see, you know, the components and some demo and stuff like that. Great. All right, so, well, and last but not least, we have an administration page. So this block will not be a multi-tenant or multi-user block, not at the moment. So it will have only one user, and that is gonna be the admin person, right? So, and we don't need a sophisticated user management or whatnot. We're just gonna have a user page, and after you're logged in, you're gonna be redirected to the user page, or maybe not. I don't know, maybe a dashboard is more appropriate term here. Dashboard component. So here, wait, maybe we don't care. Maybe I don't need the dashboard component. Maybe what I can do is that after you're logged in, right, I can make this page, a home component, look a little different and make some of the buttons and functionalities visible. For instance, you can see an edit button appear right next to the title. You also see a delete button, you know, here as well. So if you click edit, it takes you the post details component, but since you're admin, now you can see, you know, the text boxes and all that stuff. Maybe a text field that supports Markdown, right? So I think so that way I don't have to repeat myself, and with all these dashboard components and all that stuff, I already have everything I need, to be honest here. And well, I'm not quite sure about that, and you know, we can do two things to paginate this this home. We can do you know, 1, 2, 3 and all that stuff, or we can do like load as you scroll. So that's the first one, and the second one is load as you scroll down. So whatever that is called, it's like automated loading or something. I don't know what it's called in the field, but I will just say load as you scroll down. All right, that's nice. What else? Well, I told you that it's gonna be a very overall, very generic design, but I actually designed pretty much a lot of things on the front end, which is good, since it's a very basic. But you know, I haven't thought about any of these. I think it comes from experience. Like, I've done things like that, and I've seen so many blocks, and you know, I've been using Angular for a while, and I just, you know, everything immediately comes to my mind when I think about what exactly I need. So, you know, therefore experience matters, just so you guys know. I mean, you can read any of the, I mean, there are so many books that will explain, you know, what is what and how you can design stuff like that. But if you don't, you know, have your hands dirty, you know, and that means if you don't do things yourself, but just read them, you know, it's not gonna help enough. It will help, but it will help a lot better if you practice what you have learned, and if you start using what you have learned. So good. So next step, let's make this let's use green color. So this is endpoints, which is our web API that is exposed. That's a RESTful, of course. RESTful Web API exposed by the ASP.NET Core. So I'm not going to have much here except for APIs, some validation, and some encoding and decoding, like HTML encoding to protect my backend HTML encoding, and some general validations. But the logic will not reside in this layer. So these two things, let me see if I find a better color. Nope. Okay. So these two things constitute a layer called presentation layer. Presentation layer. Good. All right, so the next step, I'll just use red here. The next layer is gonna be, I'm thinking about that. So, I mean, this is a very simple project. So, I mean, I could go with two options. I can directly use MongoDB here because I'm not gonna have much here. Like, I can just have just one project here, like so, and that is acts like a business logic and data access layer and all that stuff. Or I can have another. I can have this as a business logic and kind of separate it from the data access. So like business or business logic or business what's that called? Yeah, it says a BL, business logic, and I can have this as data access logic or data access layer. So this is business logic layer, and here, you know, I can have my database, and that's gonna be MongoDB. But when I look at the project, I don't see a very complicated, you know, project that needs that level of abstraction. So what I can do is that I can still, you know, treat this layer as a API layer and have just one project, right? And that has all the logic here. When I say project, I mean I'm talking about kind of a layer, and the logic here, and you know, data access here, and all that stuff, interfaces here. I don't know. I mean, I'm going back and forth between those two designs, but my philosophy is usually is to keep things simple until it is needed, and I also try to design for future, not design the future. I don't know if you guys know the difference, but there's two things I really care. Like, design for future is not the same design the future. Okay, so you can, you know, add things. You can make things flexible for the future in case you guys will need to add extra functionality to your source code. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually designing the future. Designing the future means you actually add functionality you may or may not have, but you think that in the future you will have it, you will need it. But at that point, you don't need it. So if you do like designing the future, you basically add extra complexity that you may not need. And as I said before, software development is an iterative process, and that's what makes it easier for us to work on. So design for future makes it possible, and design the future is not. I don't know, I'll go with this, of course, all the time. So what I'm thinking is that I probably don't need this because it's gonna be a very simple project. This will put some extra complexity, and I'm willing to sacrifice my time if I truly need I truly need a BLL here, like business logic layer, in the future. And I'm just gonna, and extracting the logical classes here into this, it's not gonna be a big deal because the project is overall, it's a very simple project. And I do have the right tools. I do have all the refactoring tools and stuff that will help me a lot. Okay, so the verdict is I'm not going with this layer, and I'm just gonna have this layer and our database. So the last thing on this design is gonna be, I'm gonna have this MongoDB in a container. So we're gonna be using Docker. Of course, I can actually put the entire project in a Docker container, but I'm not gonna do it right now. As I come close to the publishing of this stuff, like completion of this project, I'm gonna put everything in a Docker container, and we'll continue my testing in a Docker container, and then eventually have 2 Docker containers. One for the database and one for the entire project over here. And we'll deploy them to onto AWS instance. AWS. Well, I can also use Azure, but I think AWS for me is a lot cheaper. If I remember correctly, I checked the prices and stuff like that. But AWS gives you free hours or so in a year, like 119 hours or so. I don't quite remember though, but it was, and I don't remember that Azure offers something similar. Anyways, that's pretty much all, guys. Let me see this one last time before I go to code and start generating our projects with the .NET Core CLI. And of course, I'm gonna make these videos an hour long. I don't want to go. I don't want to exceed that time limit. So that I can have more granular videos that I can put description for. If I like have a long videos and have so many, I explain so many things, and it's hard for me to come up with a good description that encapsulates all the things that I've taught. All right, before we leave this, let's put a robot here, just for fun. Okay, so our robot will have, I kind of like drawing though, that's just an excuse for me to kill some time. All right, it has a CD drive here in case you want to listen to some music, and these are actually speakers, and these are projectors. So it's pretty much a walk-in entertainment system. So I'm gonna call it W walking entertainment system. All right, never mind. Cool. Let's go back to our project and let's create some projects and add them to the solution. What's this, by the way? Just a second. Okay, so by the way, YouTube tells me there's no one watching. That's okay. It's probably gonna be watched later by some people. What is temperature F? Oh, Fahrenheit. Okay. Okay, so let's go to console this time. and say .NET. Of course, I gotta get out of this folder first. .NET block. So I need to call this project something. I don't exactly know what to call it because I never usually combine business logic and data access layer into one project. And how do you call it? Business data access? I don't know, business. I guess I can do that. Business data access. That sounds stupid, but I guess I just have to go with that. Or maybe I can think of something else. I don't know, it's not gonna have so much logic in it. I guess I'm just gonna call it data access, because it's pretty much data access. Because the validation will happen in the front in the ASP.NET project, and this is just gonna be like exposed on some iRepositories and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna call data access for now. Oh, of course, we have to say .NET new, and the name of that is gonna be this. Just forget about that, and it's gonna be a class library. Let's see how it's gonna look like. Let's say ls. Nice. So I need to add this project to the solution, right? So what I can do is .NET sln add, and if you use a * sign, it will find all the projects, but it's not gonna add the ones that are already in the solution file, which is a good thing. So if you look at the output here, it says block solution already contains project block web UI block web UI CS project, so it's not adding that one. Wait, let me see if it's added properly. Cool. Now, if you go back to Writer, you'll see that it knows that, and the Writer automatically loaded the project to under block solution, and that's nice. Okay, so let's commit these project changes. So I need to do I don't exactly know what I've changed in the startup CS file. I mean, I thought I reverted that. So let's do this. Let's do diff. Let's say head and the file name block.webui and startup.cs. Okay, so yeah, now I remember. I've added the contact information to the Swagger. Cool. So let's add that. Startup. Normally I can use the GUI for this Git, but I want to teach you the best way to me, and that is the command line. But JetBrains Writer has a great support for Git, just so you know, in case you don't like command lines. Okay, so added contact information to the Swagger UI. And now I'm just gonna say at and let's say this, and now added a new edit block data access project. Okay. So we can approach this project in two ways. We can either work on the front end first and just make it so that we can see something first, which is usually what I do, because when I work on front end, I actually figure more requirements, or I figure that I don't need some certain things that I thought before, and it kind of helps me to like see the project and make the UI drive the project. And because if you work on the back end first, as you work on the front end, you realize that you don't need some stuff, or you need a data in a certain way to show that to the users, right? At that point, you have to go back and change back end, and sometimes considerably. So kind of like the front end better. So let's go with front end, and then let's do the Angular first. All right, so we have to go back to our console, because I want to add the material Angular to our project. I guess I'm just gonna go here, say so cd block web UI. Here we have to go into the actual Angular project, right? So it is under web UI and under client app, and here that's the our Angular stuff. So what I'm gonna do is, I do have ng's command line here, and it is version 6 or actually 7. Okay, that's fine. By the way, we are waiting for Angular 8, and I haven't read a lot of things about it, but what I've seen is that they are introducing a new view engine they call something, I don't remember, and they claim that it's faster than the current view engine, but I haven't had a chance to do some benchmark. So anyways, ng add Angular material. So what this does is that it finds Angular material from a repo, which is probably from the npm repos, like, but it basically does like npm install Angular stuff, but it actually makes a different thing. It actually finds that could change some. It includes a schematic, and the schematic does that. It changes some appropriate areas of your code to inject some extra code to make it work in a way you were supposed to have it. But I'm seeing some errors though. Let's see. Schematics alias install collides with another alias for schematic name. Do I have that one? Alright, I wasn't expecting all these errors. What's up with that? Why do you even care MS build tools? You dumb. Look at that, so many errors and failures. Let me see what's going on here. I don't know. Let's see, actually we do have, if you have the, well, it does something for sure. Under client app, let's look at the Angular JSON, and what I'm expecting to see under scripts or styles, I want to see. All right, this is wrong. I don't. It didn't really work. But here, let's say, if we have the material here, so we have the material, but for some reason the schematic didn't work properly, and that's a problem to me because. So I want to add We're gonna figure that out. Let me show you what how the Angular material looks like first, because I think it's important to know that material angular.io. So we have components here, and we have and this is pretty much where you're gonna look at when you use this stuff. We have a lot of things here. I mean, to be honest, as I kind of prefer material over what is that called? Bootstrap. I kind of like this better, the design and everything, and it's fully compatible with Angular, so you don't have to worry about like all that other HTML stuff. It has its own directives that you can easily use within your app. So for instance, the button. This is a button. Look at the style, it's really nice. And to be honest, like, in fact, the Google uses this a lot. And Google, the new studio, YouTube Studio uses this, and pretty much a lot of other things uses this material design. By the way, the material is a specification, and Angular material library is just an implementation of that specification. So you will see the same thing on Android as well. If you use Android material, this is pretty much what you're gonna see. And there are other type of buttons here as well. So this is just overview they give you, and this is the API that you will look at as you work with these components. And this is the examples that you can see. So these are all buttons. Like there's a raised button. If you click here, it raises the button, right? And you see the shadow here, and some stroke buttons here, some flag buttons here, and some icon buttons and tab buttons and stuff like that. So it's really nice, to be honest. And we have icons here, and icons, it has a good icon support, by the way. It has batches, which I really like batches, by the way. I use them. We have chips, and we have progress spinner, which I will be using this as the loading bar or loading spinner for the app. And we have progress bar. I don't care about that one particularly. We have ripples. Let's see, what is that exactly? I haven't used ripples. Okay, so this is the ripple. Good. But most of the time I will be using a date picker. I'll be using input, form field, select, maybe not, I don't know. I'll definitely be using date picker though. And for be using card, because I like cards. Like, look at that. And it's pretty much looks like a Facebook, right? So I'll be using card like for the title and the summary, and I'll probably have some like and share and all that stuff on the home page. Not probably have this image though. Depends. I'm not quite sure. I mean, if I may change that so that it accepts an image as a default image, and I can show that image right here, and then show the summary of the post under here. So it will look like a little like Facebook, I think, which is okay. I kind of like, simple designs. And we have expansion panels and all that stuff. So this is the material design. I mean, and then we have some guides here as well if you guys want to learn. And this is where it failed for us though. For some reason, that's the command I ran, right? But for some reason it just failed. Normally I don't see that failure before. Okay, and these are never mind. Okay, so let me see. We have 6 minutes left, and I want to spend this last 6 minutes as kind of a Q&A session. If you guys have any questions, I'll wait. If you don't have any questions, then I'll end the chat in 5 minutes. All right, here we go. By the way, people recommend to use the an old version of Angular material library instead of using the latest. Let me see what's the old version. So that's that's latest. I guess I can use this one particular one. 720. So we can specify this. Let me actually try that. So I'll go back to, well, I believe there's no question, which is okay. Cancel. So ng add Angular material 720. I think that's the version I was looking at. Yeah. Not this one. Let's try this one. Okay, then I'll go with the, well, so there's another one which is 647. I don't know, I kind of like the other one. 647, let's try 647. 647. Oh, wait. I actually used the wrong way of saying the version. I should have said @. Okay, that's better now. Okay, there's some errors here as well. Okay, again, we have this schematic error, so let's try 647. What was that? 647. I probably have the same issues, I feel like. Look at those errors. Well, maybe not. Let's check it out. So what I want to see is, all right, so we updated Angular JSON file as you see here. And if you look at the styles, all right, that's what I was hoping to see at first. So you see that styles input? So that's what the schematic is for. Normally the schematics of the Angular libraries automatically updates your angular.json file as well to insert some styles to it. And otherwise you would have done this in the under styles CSS. Here you can say import and stuff, but if you use Angular JSON like so, if you want to add some global CSS files, this is where you can do this. And if you want to add some global assets and all that stuff, and this is also where the configuration happens. So look at those configurations here. So many configurations here as well. We have some server info and stuff like that. Okay, so this is Angular. I mean, Angular is a very good framework. It's very very advanced, very comprehensive framework. But we have come to the end of our live stream for today, and I haven't seen any questions from the audience. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this stream for today, and hope to see you for our third video, where in which we will be diving into the Angular hardcore. So that's it. See you guys later.